She's all right when you get to know her. This is my podcast, and it takes you from your restrictive, toxic, life-limiting 9 to 5 into a life on your terms, full of freedom and flexibility as a self-employed virtual assistant. So whether this is your first introduction into the possibility of becoming a VA, or perhaps you've been doing a bit of Googling already, I'm going to get rid of the overwhelm, rid of the self-doubt, and show you that this life is possible. I've not just started this rodeo, you know. I'm Catherine Gladwyn, and I've been doing what you think is impossible since 2015. Shall we get started? All the reasons why you're telling yourself you can't be a virtual assistant, this one is completely invalid. Now, if you think that working a 9 to 5 and raising a family, running a house, or all the other, whatever you've got going on in your life is going to stop you from starting your own virtual assistant business, you're going to love this podcast. It is how most of us start our virtual assistant business alongside a 9 till 5. You might be shouting at me now saying, I haven't even got an hour spare every day. Of course you have. I mean, come on. If you've got more than one child, you can get rid of a couple, surely. Sorry, mate, it's called economising. Mummy needs to start a business. No, obviously not. Don't do that, please, because this podcast will be over before it's even started. But yeah, it is how most of us start our business. There is an hour when the children go to bed. There's half an hour when the children go to bed. Perhaps you finish work an hour before they finish school. So therefore, you've got half an hour, 45 minutes then to be doing every little bit you need on that journey to launch your virtual assistant business. So we're just talking about launching it at the moment. We're not talking about how you do the client work. Just recently, I updated my VA starter guide and I've put in there launch schedules. So you go through the course step by step. You can go through it like half an hour a week if you want, but there are launch schedules in there now, so you can launch within 3 days. Send the kids off to granny's. You can launch within a week. Sellotape the kids to the walls. You could launch in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or you can launch in 12 months if you want. You take as long as you want. You do things bit by bit. It doesn't all need to be done at once. But you've got everything there in the VA starter guide that you need to do to launch. And you can do it. I mean, I promised you that I would share things with you that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't be doing it when it's a bit quiet at work, you know? It's not really on, is it? That's not what you paid for. But I'm not saying I did that, but you know. But yeah, there's always time. You can always find time. I did it alongside my 9 till 5, my daughter who couldn't drive. I had to drive her around places. I had a boyfriend, still got a boyfriend, and running a house. You couldn't afford a cleaner back then. I was doing it all, but I so desperately wanted the end result. I so desperately wanted control of my life. The financial wealth that came with it was a surprise to me. I just wanted that ability to work from home on my terms, alone, without noise, without any toxic people around me. And that gave me the drive. That enabled me to find the time to go forward and, you know, perhaps I was running at the time as well. Perhaps I'd go for a run at 6 a.m. as opposed to doing it in the evening, and just juggle things around a little bit to begin with. There's always the time. And if you get a guide that supports you on that journey or a course, then it helps as well, because you're not wasting time by Googling the next thing and then being overwhelmed and all the conflicting ideas. You need a niche, you don't need a niche, and all of that. We'll talk about that in a future podcast. But it can be done. You just need to set aside time. One of the main problems, though, that you may have are your employers. But I'm going to show you a way around that as well. Now, before you embark on the virtual assistant journey, if you're employed, you need to check your terms and conditions of employment. It would be remiss of me not to advise you to do that, because some terms and conditions of employment, I'm laughing here because this is not what I did, but I'm not practicing, sorry, what I'm preaching. But some terms and conditions of employment state that you must inform HR or your manager if you take on any extra work outside of your 9 to 5. Or some very old fashioned terms and conditions of employment also say that you are not permitted to have any other role, which is just another example of how employers like to control our time. Oh my God, it's so bad. It winds me up so much. How dare anybody say what you can do in your spare time, for Christ's sake? You're already giving them enough every day and not getting paid for it. You know, your commute to work and your commute home and the stress on Sunday nights. I could go on. I was so passionate about how badly it, you know, how bad women's lives are as an employee, and why I champion this virtual assistant journey so much. But yeah, if you've got any of those clauses, even if you haven't, then just out of courtesy, book an appointment with HR or with your manager, whoever you're most comfortable with, and just say, look, I'm going to be starting my own virtual assistant business. It is not to replace my 9 till 5, and it is not going to interfere with my commitment to the company. I am doing it to bring more money into the family's pot. And then if you've got that clause in there that says you can't have any other job, I'd like to see them try and stop you, because you've specifically said you're doing it to bring more money into the family. And if they want to stop you doing that, then there needs to be justification for that. Perhaps they could double your wages, maybe? Because if they're stopping you from getting through this cost of living and the enormous increase in utilities, food, everything, rent, if you're renting, mortgages, everything, then they need to justify that. They need to explain why. Most employers are absolutely fine. I honestly, I can't think of anybody now who's had a problem with their employers when they've given that line to them, because it's just unethical to stop you doing that. What most employers are worried about is in case there's a conflict of interest. So maybe if you're targeting small business owners and they work with small business owners, they might think you might poach people. So if that's a potential red flag for your employers, then address that before they raise it as a concern. And make sure that you say to them, I'm not looking to replace my full-time role. Now, that is a slight fib, but I don't want you to be treated any differently by your employers because they think you're going to be leaving soon. Now, that conversation needs to happen because you need to be on LinkedIn, and you can only have one profile on LinkedIn. And yet, by all means, test it, go and have another profile. They find them and they close both of them down in the end. So from your one profile on LinkedIn, you're going to need to promote your virtual assistant business. And it doesn't matter if you block everybody from HR, they'll still find it. And I'd speak from first-hand experience there. I blocked everybody in the HR department so that they couldn't see my LinkedIn account. And then I got a phone call to say, we've noticed you've been marketing on LinkedIn. Well, how? Because you're blocked, and you're blocked, and you're blocked. There's this thing called bloody smartphones, and if you're interacting with people, even if it's not on your phone, because phones listen as well. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, it's fact. Phones listen, or maybe you've emailed from your phone, you logged into your work email or something, it's picked all those contacts and it's going to show other people that you've interacted with what you've been doing. Even if you've blocked them, they've probably got another account that they use to check up on staff, or they log in using a boyfriend or girlfriend's account or something like that. Anyway, you can get caught. So yeah, this is why it's best to be open to your employers. You're not going to be able to hide from them. So do have that conversation with your employers, and then don't worry that you've got to be putting 8 hours a day into being a VA. We're just going to launch first, okay? We're just going to get everything ready to launch, because you're not going to start doing work for clients before you've got everything set up and ready. And I don't mean laptop open and an ergonomic, economic mouse by your side. There's lots that you need in place for a potential client to feel safe working with you. We're just talking about launching at the moment. When you get to having clients, you can do the work in the evenings or at the weekends. Or if you work evenings, you can do it in the day. My own PA, I think she works 2.5 days a week, but she does my support inbox. So even doing inbox management is possible around a paid employed role, because I don't need somebody in there 24/7, and she's so efficient. The days that she is in there, I know she's dealing with everything. So you do things when you have got the time to do it. As long as you're saying to potential clients, great, I'll get that back to you on Wednesday by 4 p.m, and you don't miss that deadline, then there isn't a problem. You don't need to tell clients your working hours. It's not relevant. Always. It's not always relevant. But if they were to say to you, is there any chance I could have that done on Monday at 10 o'clock? But you work a 9 till 5, you could say to them, well, I'm currently still employed, so I will do it in the evening and get that back to you by 7 p.m. Monday. Is that okay? They'll be absolutely fine with it. So there is that excuse gone. Gone. Poof. In a waft of smoke, it's gone. Now, if you've got any other questions, don't forget that you can email me at podcast@catherinegladwyn.co.uk. Or did you know I've got a free Facebook group? Just put Catherine Gladwyn into Facebook, click on groups, and there I am. Come and join. Answer the questions, though, because if you don't answer the questions, I'm not letting you in. I'll see you next time. If you're ready to reclaim your independence, then subscribe to this podcast, because there is so much I'm going to give you. You've got to subscribe on your favourite channel, it says. What channel? I ain't going to be on the BBC, am I?